Morning, BFF.
Morning, BFF. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm all right. Are you?
I am all right. You know what? I'm absolutely freaking shattered.
But you have had a lot on this week, haven't you? Especially moving offices.
Yes.
And you've been lugging furniture around. And
yes.
Yeah.
And I joined the Be Sober exercise class on Monday, which has, it was wonderful. Alex, you led it. You was amazing. But I won't lie, I have been cursing you every single time I've tried to go up and down the stairs. And when I moved offices, there were 3 flights of stairs.
Oh, it's all stretching the muscles. You've done a great job. But plus as well, you've also taken up your running again, haven't you? So I bet that's played a part.
Yeah, like what has happened to me? Must be getting some inspiration from somewhere.
I wonder if it's because you're dating. We won't go into that today, but
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Yeah, I don't think we should, but we're going to have a big chat about this. All our members will be dying to know about your relationship status.
We will have a chat about it, because I think it's like a big thing to talk about, actually, relationships and starting dating, and like relationships anyway is a really good subject, isn't it? Like whether past relationships, new relationships, and dating is sober is a whole other level. I have realized I'm just an awkward absolute geek, and
You've always been a geek. I told you this on the phone yesterday, right? You've been one of those popular geeks who pretended like to be something else for years, and now you're not those things because you're not drinking. You're showing your geekiness even more, but that's nice. I love that about you. That's why we're best friends. I know it is. We said last night on our live that we don't know what we've got in common. Actually, when I think back to the first time we met, we were both awkward then. Awkward little geeks.
Alex, I had to sleep at your house and I didn't even know you. That's like awkward. And we had them weird pizzas. Like,
and you hate pizza. And you know what the worst thing is about this whole situation? You're not going to blame me for why you started drinking, because you realised at that point you had social anxiety. I'll take the smoking, but I'm not taking the drinking, all right? So anyway, today's guest, we've got Emily, haven't we, who's the founder of Sober and Social. Was it 2018 that she founded it?
Yes, 2018.
Yeah, and it's like a global brand and community supporting people who want to explore and lead a teetotal lifestyle. So the core ethos of Sober and Social is to empower, encourage and celebrate living the healthiest and happiest life. So let's hear from Emily. Hi, Emily. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, how are you guys?
Well, good, thank you. You know what? It's so funny because we've actually just done an off-air podcast for at least 22 minutes. And it'd be, we thought we'd better involve our audience in our conversation.
Yeah, it'd be good for people to hear what we have to say, isn't it?
Yeah, so we were just talking about coffee. Now, our audience know that my coffee addiction was off the rails, and now I've transferred it to Lisa. But you're actually making a really good point about your coffee intake at the minute.
Yeah, so my coffee definitely replaced my drinking and drug taking addiction, just like I know it does for a lot of people. And it actually got to the point where I was feeling just really anxious, coupled with smoking as well at the beginning. I have stopped smoking now, I just like to stipulate, it did take a while. I reckon that was a good 2 years after I stopped drinking for the smoking to fully go. And the coffee just started making me feel really anxious, actually. And I just thought, right, I need to, it's like the next phase, isn't it? It's the ever evolving phase of personal development once you get sober, of, what can I do next? What's now making me feel awful? So for me, it's been the coffee. So I am on 1 a week now.
I can't believe that. You might as well cut it out altogether, Emily. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, moderating coffee. Like, how do you feel about that 1 a week? When do you have it? Do you prepare? Is it like a ceremony? What happens?
So this week it was on a Monday morning, actually.
Oh, good time.
So I had to go for a walk, get a coffee. But then last week it was Saturday when I went to a market. So it varies. who knows when it's going to be. I just, you know, I like to keep some excitement in my life, you know.
You know what I love? If there's anybody like new to being sober and this is their first ever podcast listen, they'll be like, is this what I've got to look forward to? One coffee a week?
Yeah, but one coffee, lots of clarity, lots of motivation, no regrets, better finances, clearer skin, better hair, and being a better person on top of your one cup of coffee. So I actually think it's quite a good deal, really.
You've just nailed sobriety, right? We'll see you next week, listeners. Thank you. It's true, isn't it, that you know when you kind of first get sober and you're massively focusing and you see these people, and I'm sure you've got them in your members groups as well, where they go, and I want to stop smoking, and I want to stop eating sugar, and I want to cut down on coffee, and you just can't do everything. I don't believe you can do everything at once, or you should do everything at once. You've just got to start with alcohol and get sober, right?
100%. I think that's all that matters, isn't it? And I even said this to myself in like my first month. I was like, I don't care what you do in the world, but you cannot pick up a drink and you cannot take a drug. So I don't care if you go home and you eat 3 macaroni cheeses, or you smoke 60 Marlboro Lights, or you have 5 lattes a day. You can do whatever you want, but you just can't do those 2 things. And that kind of made like the whole going, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was not easy for me, but it kind of was like, oh, okay, so I can do like literally whatever I want, because it almost felt like, you know, that had been taken away from me, really. So by like framing it like that, of course I didn't do those things. Okay, maybe the smoking wasn't that healthy, but yeah, it just made me feel better that, you know, by saying to yourself, you can do anything you want, just not these 2 things. There's actually a lot of things in life that you can do. So it kind of like makes the process like a bit easier. And I think in the beginning, it's just about stabilizing, isn't it? It's just being like, okay, what are my primaries here, and what is literally essentially life-threatening, destructive, and is gonna, take me down a not very good road. And for me, that was drinking drugs. So as long as those were stabilized, then it's like, okay, what else do we need to do here to make me feel better? Because, you know, of course, if you're not eating food, like good food, or you know, if you're eating junk food and you're smoking loads a day and you're not exercising and doing all of these, you know, healthcare things, well-being things that we know are good for you, you actually still feel pretty shit.
Yeah. And the thing is that you don't realize that you're going to feel shit off not doing those things until you're sober, because actually when you're not sober, it's the alcohol and the hangovers that are making you feel like rubbish. Once that goes and you kind of get past that 30-day mark, you suddenly start to think, like you've said, oh, well, now I need to cut back on this, or now I need to, you know, focus on doing a bit more meditation, or focus on doing, I don't know what I snorted for then.
No way.
I forgot what I was saying now with that. But how did I actually pig snorted then? I'm so sorry, everybody.
I really enjoyed it.
The pig snort.
It actually went like this. Honestly, I went, and in my nose, I felt it vibrate. I'm so sorry.
You know what it is? It's because you were passionate about what you had to say.
I was going to say about having a hot bath, but maybe I should have said about rolling in mud.
You know what, Emily, can we take you back a little bit? Because I know you've got a background in events, and you were saying that it was drinking and drugs. So was that a big part? What actually was your defining moment? And
I mean, to be honest, I think
that's
like my
end of question. Sorry.
You know, that's it. Mic drop. To be honest, I think my defining moment was the moment that I started drinking, because I actually never had like a healthy relation with it from the moment I had it, from 12 years old, to be perfectly honest. And I just think kind of like as I got older, you know, the teenage years were very much blackout drinking. And then I found drugs at 17, which actually allowed my drinking to be better. I know that sounds ironic, but it did mean that, I could actually stay out longer, and I was more complimentous than I was when I was drinking, to be perfectly honest. I didn't lose things. I didn't seem to get out of control. And that really, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was probably a mess in a completely other way, but not in a way that I had been, in a sense, you know, throwing up on street corners, blacking out, not remember what was happening, having to be the person that was sent home at 10 p.m. because they couldn't handle their, you know, Gallo rosé. to then being able to actually, oh, I can stay out for 2 days now and I remember everything. And I'd always have this thing where I'd get quite like obsessive with like, right, have I got my keys? Have I got my phone? Have I got my makeup bag? Have I got my credit card? Like, everywhere that I would go, I would just be like quite on it. So I never really lost anything either during those years, which is quite amazing. And I lost so many things when I was just drinking. So yeah, so that was kind of like at 17. And then as I got older, I moved, and I'd always done like events. So one of the first jobs I got was working in a pub because, you know, free booze and socializing, it seemed like the dream. And then even when I went to uni, like all of my jobs where I was a shop girl down in Brighton, I then worked at a music venue and then at another pub. So I had 3 jobs when I was at uni, all nightlife related, alcohol related, people related. Did events management at university. Oh, I know, because I'll get to do really cool events, like drink alcohol for free and meet loads of cool people. Like it was always like everything that I always did was very like centered around this. And then when I moved to London, worked for a well-known concierge service, and that was again very like people-based, sorting things out, arranging, but very social. So we'd get invited to lots of restaurants or lots of bars or lots of nightclubs. And then kind of in my last few years, my job role was actually head of nightlife. So it was actually my job to go to bars and to nightclubs and, you know, arrange access for our clients, sort out events and make sure they were well looked after. Well, coupled with that, obviously, is lots of drinking and other things that you would perhaps do to help your drinking. So, you know, from a really young age, really, I've always been drawn to that world because of the social element, I suppose. So it's probably no surprising now in my sobriety that I decided, oh, it should be called Sober and Social, because it was still, you know, very much me, I suppose, but just not with the alcohol. So yeah, and then at 28, it did just get to a point where my mental health was at an all-time low. I wasn't really going to work anymore because I couldn't, because I was too hungover. And I was just feeling really awful about myself and about my life, and just thought I can't really continue. So yeah, I went and got therapy, and then started Sober and Social, which is my sober community that runs, just in case anyone's listening and has no idea what I'm banging on about.
They will.
We've given you an
about
intro.
it.
We've done
No,
it.
don't worry.
Okay, fine. I thought you'd done the introduction. I'd be like, what?
We forgot to tell you that we'd done that bit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just in case, you know.
Yeah, we didn't just come on, hi, Emily. Here's a randomer we've picked up. Let's have a chat.
Was there ever a point, Emily, like after you stopped drinking, where you actually thought, I don't want to be as social anymore?
Honestly, no. Like, I actually just love meeting people. Like, it honestly is my favourite thing to do. I just really like chatting and having conversations and getting to know about people. And I think maybe in like some respects, because I've got dyspraxia, and for anyone that is not aware of what that is, but it's basically, well, it's lots of different things. Like, just to give an e.g., like everyone could tie their shoelaces at school, but I didn't know how to tie my shoelaces. Or people could like tell the time. I could never understand what does it mean on the clock? Like, what time is it? Or like my timetables. Like, I still don't know my timetables. Like, I was very like slow at learning at school, and I think maybe because of that, what it did do is it made me focus on other things that maybe I was good at. So like, you know, I can talk to people, I can engage in people. So I think maybe, you know, and intellectually is obviously opened up to, it's different for each person, right?
Yeah.
You've got like like intelligence at school, which is whether you've got an A star or not, but actually intelligence comes in so many different forms, whether it's like logical intelligence or emotional intelligence or personal intelligence or people intelligence. So, but my intelligence was never really, you know, an A star student. It was, you know, I got a U in my maths GCSE, for example. So I think where I'd always felt a bit kind of less than, I always focused on, okay, my other strengths. So that really was probably the caveat for me, or the motivation for me to go into the events world and yeah, do those types of jobs. So yeah, in a really long way to answer your question.
Short term.
Me.
as we keep doing that today. Yes, I have always loved socialising, sober or off my phone.
So your website started with, I think I'm right in saying you started just with doing events, is that right?
Yes, and that was always my aim, was to show people that they didn't have to compromise their life because they weren't drinking, and Sober and Social was set up on the premises of that, basically, that if people could meet up, have those connections and meet other people that were living the same lifestyle as them and going sober, because we all know how difficult that is and how important community and connection really is, and kind of, making that stick and making that sustainable and making us feel like we're not alone in this, because it can feel quite lonely at the beginning, I think. But also just to be like, do you know what, you can go have an amazing time and you don't need alcohol to do it. And that was kind of like, why I set it up. So so that was a good synopsis. Thank you.
And this has grown now, hasn't it? Like, you're now offering support as well. You've trained as a coach. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I launched the membership. So I launched the membership in September. And the reason for that really was, over lockdown, obviously we couldn't do any in real life events. So we had to pivot and make everything online, which was great. And I just kind of thought, we do these like great events. We've got the podcast, we've got our Instagram page as well, but there's nowhere really else for people to go to like have the support to be connected to people that maybe they've met at an event or they've interacted with on Instagram or whatever it might be. So the membership really was kind of born out of that. And also we were in a global pandemic, and I just thought, people needed more support in their sobriety. So that was kind of born out of that. And then I've done my coaching accreditation, which I'm actually, so I've been coaching for about a year now, which has been really exciting. And it is just something I'm so passionate about. And it really has made me realise just how much you can help someone just by, giving a safe space, listening, not advising, but actually just really kind of understanding them and, really helping them move forward with manageable steps and looking at goals and how, just by breaking things down and giving people that safe space is so powerful, because we don't really have that in our life, do we? Just an hour just to sit there and be like, okay, what am I thinking and what do I actually feel?
Yeah, and knowing that everything's inside you, once that coach, be it you or any coach, brings it out of you, you realize that actually I can do this. It's all about me. I have the power to do this. I have the power to change my life, and it is about empowerment. Do you not think though? I mean, I found when I was doing my coach training, my self-discovery really took off at that point, because I found myself coaching myself. Like, I had a little conference going on in my head all day. Like, no, right, we're not gonna have that drink. What would you like to achieve today? Did you find that?
Even today in bed, like, I was thinking about something I need to do this morning, and I was like, will this choice empower you or disempower you towards your goal? I was like, staying in bed an extra 5 minutes will disempower me, so I need to go and quickly get in the shower. So you do start to kind of like start thinking like that in your life, don't you? And then when you can do that for other people as well, like, the results are like incredible, and people generally can lead more fulfilling, encouraging, and empowering lives by having a coach. So that has been an amazing journey to go on this past year, really. And then we've got the podcast. So we've got a few bits going on.
Yeah, I think, looking around your website, it's got quite a good offering, hasn't it? It's like very balanced. It's got the social aspect. I know we were talking before, we've got quite a lot in common, actually, be sober and social in the things. And, watch this space, because there might be a collaboration coming up, hey, Emily?
Yeah, exactly. Watch out for in real life events.
Yeah, definitely. So can you tell us about like what your journey to, and I hate this saying, but I always say it, journey to sobriety was like, how did you get sober?
Yeah, so I first started with sobriety when I was 25, and that was the first time I was really like, oh, okay, maybe there's a bit of an issue here. And I went sober. I would do like months, and like 1 month I would go on like a juice cleanse, and then I'd go back to drinking, and then the next month I trained for a marathon, and like didn't drink for, I don't know, 5 months. And all of these things, I'd go on a yoga retreat or whatever it might be, but I'd always go back to drinking. I couldn't understand, like, how can people like go to a birthday party or like deal with like stress after work, or, you know, how is anyone going to accept me if I don't drink anymore? Like, I actually really did struggle with all of these things that kind of went on in my head. But when I got to 28, I think it was very obvious that alcohol was a problem in terms of, like, you know, not being able to go to work as often, not being able to hold down a healthy relationship, feeling very low the whole time. Like, it had to be, there's only one common denominator. And when I looked at my life, I was like, I only ever really regretted things when I've been drunk or hungover. Like, me as a person, as me, I'm like quite a nice person, and I'm quite moral, and I really care about people, and I want to be kind, and I want to show up in the world, and I want to, you know, be at work on time. And, you know, that's who I felt I authentically was. Every time I would drink, it would just really go against that, and I would do things that I regretted. I would behave immorally. I just would do things that were like damaging for myself, and always end up in a world of regrets and feeling low and all of these things that I'm sure all of us have experienced. But there becomes a point where you're like, those moments are now bigger than you actually being your actual self. And you know, it's like you've got these two people inside of you. It's like the good Emily and the bad Emily. And the bad Emily, I don't really like the term good or bad, because it you know, it is what it is, but just so people can understand, well, like, that was in my head. You know, and that bad was becoming more often than the good. So that's when you need to be like, okay, I'm not actually very happy now, I need to sort this out. So yeah, so that was kind of and it was just after another 3-day adventure, let's call it that. That I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. So I went and got therapy, which was great. Like, it genuinely, I don't think I would be sober now if it wasn't for that. And I'd actually had the idea for Sober and Social like 2 years before I set it up, but I just couldn't stay sober. So then I was like, right, okay, let's just put this out there. Let's get the Instagram page done, because once you put it out there, you're accountable then, and you can't really go back.
Yeah.
So that was the thing for me, like, just putting it out there. And it was like, okay, well, you're out now, you've done the therapy. And there were definitely stages where I was toying with like, well, I haven't really posted that much, and if I went and drank, no one would really know. And the therapy, like, I can just go back and do therapy again, like, you know, like, there were definitely moments where I was like, do I want to go sober? Is this the life I want to lead? Like, it felt scary, like, leaving, I suppose, your comfort zone, really, isn't it? Of how you've ever dealt with social situations, relationships, stresses, emotions, and like, to suddenly not have something there that was gonna, you know, your friend essentially, that was gonna help you through everything. But it doesn't, obviously, as we know, but that's how it felt. It was actually really scary.
It's heartbreaking.
Well, Emily, I think you're quite young to have stopped drinking. I always say this, but I genuinely wish that I'd have stopped in my 20s, or even never started, actually. Like, some people are like, no, I like it made me who I was. But I'm like, but if I knew how good it was, I genuinely envy people that have stopped quite young, because it took me like till I was 38, 39,
That's still very young
to stop drinking.
Yeah, it is still young, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad I did. But it always fascinates me that people have done it 10 years before. I feel like, God, why didn't I know that then?
You know why that's
though,
what
Lisa?
I feel like? Do you know why that is, right? And I've got a theory about this, and it's just come to me right now. Our wild years, as in our crazy kind of most drunk years, were in our 30s.
Yeah.
Whereas it sounds like Emily's were in her early 20s. If you don't mind me talking about you as if you're not here, Emily.
Go ahead. I mean, I very much enjoy you two having your chat, if I'm honest.
But I think that's it. I think that you in our 20s when we were drinking, it wasn't destructive drinking, and like it was when it was in our 30s. So, I don't think it's about that.
Good theory, actually. Yeah, you're right. Because I think when I was 30, I'd split up from my husband and tried to, and because I was a young mum, I was a mum at 19, so I tried to rekindle all them years that I thought I'd lost, which obviously involved drinking. So
and we really did lose years in our 30s. I mean, I don't remember a lot of my 30s. They've gone by in a blur, because I think I did spend a lot of it blackout drunk, and I know you were the same because we were together.
I was trying to avoid it.
Makes sense.
So that,
yeah, it does make sense.
I think so. But
and I think in some ways, like, unless you're doing it for health benefits, which of course a lot of people do these days, it's got to get to a point where you've got to have questioned it. So in your 20s, if it wasn't problematic, or it probably was in its way, but not to the point where, it's noticeably you need to do something about it, or you think that you need to do something about it.
I mean, I had bad periods, bad times. My dad died when I was 30, 31, and that was a really big drinking period for me, but then I pulled it back and was fine again. So I think, like you say, it was always coming. It was never a healthy relationship, if there is such a thing. It was never a healthy relationship with alcohol, but it was also not destructive. It only got destructive for me in my 30s and later 30s. I mean, I honestly, and you just with you talking about accountability, I know if we hadn't have set up Be Sober, and this is really like putting myself in a vulnerable position, but I think I would have gone back at one point.
Yeah,
I really do. You think I would have done? I think I would have done. I think having Be Sober and having to hold myself accountable to people I was supporting, connecting, and obviously my best friend, that wouldn't have gone down great, would it? I think that's what kept me sober. So I think you're right. Once you put yourself out there, it does hold you accountable. And I think that's what holds people stuck, isn't it? Of not breaking the news and not telling people. It's self-doubt. It's a bit of like, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know if I want to do this, is what you tell yourself. But actually, you're just doubting your ability. And that's where the coach comes in. That's why the coach is good.
Yeah, and that's why we're good coaches. Does this empower your sobriety?
I love that. I'm going to say that, and I'm actually going to use it at getting up in the morning, because I used to be so good at doing that, and the last few months I've found that I'm like, I could just have a little bit longer. So yeah, I'm going to literally use them words.
I'm going to point something out to you, Lisa. You were also better at getting an early night before.
When
you were getting up earlier. You go to bed later now.
Yeah, I do. I have been going to bed a little bit earlier, but yeah, I found that I used to say that I was a night owl, and that's what I was. So that was my excuse.
What she means is she was a piss pot.
Yeah. But I used to say, oh no, I wake up at night. It's why I stay up till 7 a.m. In some random kitchen that I don't know anybody at. And then when I got sober, I realised that I was a morning person. So for a year, I was like, I love mornings and getting up. Then I did that 5. What did we read? What was it called?
Miracle Morning.
Do you love that? I said, what did we read? This is how bad we are.
That's our life. We do everything together. Oh, let's read this, Lisa. And then halfway through, she'll go, I don't like this book. And I'll go, I didn't want to tell you, neither do I. And we both get rid of it.
It's so ridiculous. We're like a weird married couple.
We're worse.
But yeah, that Miracle Morning. So I started getting up really early. Absolutely loved it. After about 6 weeks, I was so exhausted, ridiculously exhausted. So then decided I was a night owl again, and that I should be up at night. So I don't know what I should be doing, really.
Just get a routine and stick to it, will you? You're making me dizzy.
Are you a night person now, Emily, or a morning, or an any?
Well, it's a tricky question, that, because I generally love going out, right? So I would say if the occasion is there, I really like to go out and dance till 3 a.m. But as a general rule of thumb, I actually like to be in bed by 10 p.m. and get up at around 6:30 a.m. and start my day. So that's how and especially over lockdown as well, I feel like, and I'm just not very good without any sleep. Some people are like, I can survive on 4 hours. I can't. I become really quite annoyed at the world. and just quite like grouchy with people, if I'm honest. So I know that about myself. So I'm like, I know that I need at least, I mean, ideally 10 hours, but 8 to 9 hours for me to operate as a full human being. So yeah, so I do that my sleep.
I'm just going to copy her. I'm going to go to bed at 10. I'm going to get up at 6, and I'm going to say that to myself in the morning.
She won't, right? 10 o'clock tonight, she'll be sat there saying, oh, and we should add this, and we should do this, and I'll be doing it back. And then she'll be saying, oh, I can't believe it, I stayed up till 1 a.m. I'm like, yeah, because we were thinking of new ideas.
It's the worst. And you'll know this, like the ideas that come for things is
when you're sat.
Yeah.
When you're sat, and that's the problem at night, is the only time you stop is after like 9 p.m. some nights, having the kids, having your other businesses, having the lounges. So 9 p.m. you finally sit down and go, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, we could do this, we could do that. Da, 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 da. That's what it is. You just need to switch your thinking time to early.
Yeah, you're making me tired.
My fault you stay up late. Oh dear. So in lockdown, Emily, have you had, you sort of touched on it, that you've adapted obviously for this new kind of way. Have you done any online events, and are you continuing them, and what kind of things are you doing as we come out of this lockdown?
Yeah, so I actually calculated, I can't remember how many it was last year, how many events we did, and it was loads. Like it was actually more than we actually did the year before, like in real life. So yeah, over lockdown 1, I started these things called Thirsty Thursdays, which was like an online Thursday meetup. Bring your favourite AF drink and basically have a natter and check in every week. So we started doing that. Then we did some fitness events. We did yoga. I did some DJ nights on my Instagram. To stipulate, I did not DJ. Just in case anyone's thinking of hiring me for a party, I can't DJ. So we did those types of things. And then in the membership, we have our weekly sharing circles every Sunday, which I absolutely love. And that's basically for people to check in, have their weekly accountability, and just have a space to kind of, we say, share struggles and stresses and successes. So people can kind of meet up with each other. And then we do mix and mingles once a month. So that's, we use a dating app, and people go on it and they spend 4 minutes with each member for like an hour. So they can really like meet and have like a really interactive time. Like the closest thing really that I've come across to being in a bar basically online. So we do that once a month. And then we always have like an expert workshop. So last month we did a sex and intimacy workshop because, sober sex and dating and intimacy, I think actually is really hard when you go sober, and it's something that continually comes up in our membership. So it was just really, and we've got quite a few single people in our membership too. So we did it over Valentine's Day weekend, because I just think, it's quite empowering, isn't it, to know that you can, self-pleasure and intimacy is not just coming from another person, and it is, a relationship with ourselves essentially. So that type of thing. And then we've done, I know what else have we done? Like we've had a Barry's boot camp trainer in, we've done Pilates, we've done yoga, we've done sound bath. So that's all been going on the past few months. And then coming out of lockdown, in the membership, we are starting walking groups. So groups 6 from next month to just go on a walk, grab a cup of coffee when the world will allow. Then we're going to do a picnic in, what date are we in now, Han? I think it's May, when we can. I think it's only up to 30 people though outside in May. And then June, we will do something bigger. I have an idea of what I want that to be, but still in the planning stages. So yeah, very much. And it will still be online as well. Like we'll still have a mix and mingle, a sharing circle, a workshop, just so people can always stay connected. But of course, in real life is where the magic happens, isn't it? And that is why I started Sober and Social. So it kind of makes sense for me to continue with why we started it out of lockdown, really.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very busy. I think you should have a sleep when we come out of lockdown.
Yeah, I know. No wonder you.
I mean, I really would like that.
We've found that, haven't we? But we've been really busy in lockdown, and I've got some friends who are like, "Oh, should we ever catch up on the phone?" I'm like, "No, I definitely haven't got time for that." But I'm glad you have. Yeah. What age range, Emily, are people that join your groups? I'm just thinking for our listeners, especially like the single mingle
Can I just say, before you answer that question, in the intro, which you haven't heard and didn't know existed, we were talking very briefly about sober relationships. And it is something that we should have a conversation about at some point on here, and maybe even come back on, Emily, because, yeah, I reckon Lisa's in a situation. I keep hinting at it. She don't want to talk about it.
Situation.
She is. She's in a situation where for the first time in her sober life, she's proper dating.
Oh, with one person, with the same person.
Yeah.
She won't talk about it.
Okay, can we talk about this? What date number are you on?
Well, I've had date number 3. We talk a lot. Like
social distance, I hope.
Yeah.
At the minute it is, Emily, but you know, if things progress and they're not social distance, it's good. Seriously, I mean, not just about Lisa, but this is an awkward thing, isn't it? When you get sober, having to go through that whole transition from the mates bit into the sex bit is a bit daunting. I think it's daunting in marriage, you know, and I am going to put this out there. I'm married. I've been with my husband for years. And when I got sober, I was telling Lisa on the phone some of the things, and it's awkward, and it's not even like,
yeah, like you can't put that on here.
It would have to be censored. But like some of the things that, like, the awkward moments before sex now are really awkward. Before that thing we do, it is really awkward sometimes. I've been with him forever, and it's like when you get pissed, you just you don't remember how it starts. That's the truth. You don't remember how it starts. You don't remember the act sometimes,
or if it ended. But yeah,
don't worry, I have been there as well. Like, I've woken up sometimes and gone, did we have sex last night? You know, like, and he's gone, I don't know. You know, like, seriously. But everything is just so vivid, and so you're so present for it. It can be lovely and it can be amazing, but it can also be really scary. You know, like, especially if you don't know who's going to initiate something. Having words before foreplay are not easy.
I just think it's so scary. Like, it is. It's meant to be fun and enjoyable.
It is when you're there.
But honestly, for me, as much as it is, and it's really nice, and it's just really difficult as well. Really difficult, because I've realised what an awkward person I am. And like kissing and that, how do you go about that? Like when like you're not, it's just so awkward.
If you're not stood in a bar in the smoky bar, this is what she's trying to say, and you're naturally that close to each other that it feels okay to kiss, how do you move from one side of the room to the other and actually engage in a kiss
without saying it and stuff? And then you're just aware of every touch and feeling and part of you. Do you know what I mean?
I said to you, and it's like I said to you, that's just a kiss. Now imagine having to go through all that when you want to initiate foreplay.
Yeah, I think the sex piece and the dating and the sober dating piece is a massive blind spot for people, really, once they get sober. Because, and I think as well, like, you know, if you've been drinking from 12 or a young age, like I'm sure most people have, every day was drinking, and basically every sexual encounter was with alcohol for me. I had a few boyfriends, but nothing really serious. So I'd never been in like a long-term relationship with anyone. So I didn't know what it actually meant to have a healthy, sexual, non-performative relationship with someone. Like, I just didn't know what that was. And equally, when I got sober, I realised it's really hard to fancy people when you're sober.
Yeah, you said that, didn't you, Lisa?
Yeah.
I just did not fancy people. Like, I was like, oh, they're really nice, but that sexual urge that I'd have to basically straddle someone after a glass of wine or a bottle, or drag them home after 3, just was not there anymore. Like, it just wasn't. I was like, I just kind of want to go home and have a cup of tea, if I'm honest. Like, I found it really hard to feel sexual about people in my sobriety. To caveat that, the sex that I did have in my sobriety was really good, but it made me realise that sobriety for me made my sex life less. Like, it was definitely thriving, shall we say, when I was drinking, whereas when I went sober, I mean, you know, I'd go months. Well, like a very long time without sex, basically. But also, I think a lot of things have come into play with that. So, the not fancying someone as much and finding it hard to feel sexual, but also B, I started to respect myself so much more and love myself so much more, that I didn't want to engage in casual sex or have sex with someone that I didn't really trust or that I didn't feel safe with. And and I also think I just started respecting my body a lot more and just not wanting to give it away and feeling more confident in myself. I didn't need validation from another person anymore, actually. Like, I very much used sex to feel validated, to feel attractive. I'd almost kind of felt, you know, if I'd done that with someone, then I was okay. Like, I was still attractive and people would still want to be with me and maybe love me. You know, it was all coming from that. So to get rid of all of that and suddenly be like, right, I've got my boundaries, I feel strong, I feel confident. Oh, I don't actually fancy you anyway. You know, like it's a whole pot really of reasons, as I think, why your sex life gets less in sobriety.
This is really interesting, because you know what, and I don't mean this in the way, it'll come out wrong, because it always does with me. You'll get used to this, but like in a marriage, you can't have that mindset if you want your marriage to stay healthy. I'm already in this relationship where sex has been, like you've described, fiery. You know, I thought I was absolutely gorgeous at 2 a.m. with YouTube on, prancing around in my underwear, trying to do sexy poses for my husband. And he thought I was gorgeous as well, because he was just as pissed. And I'm sure he still does find me gorgeous and the rest of it, but I didn't feel it. So like, you know, going from a very active sex life to then being sober and going, oh my God, like, I don't want my marriage to go to shit. I don't want that element to go, because it was, you know, I always enjoyed that element of my marriage. So to be able to get the confidence quickly so that things don't go to shit when you're already in that relationship, it's equally challenging, actually. But it's interesting you say it, because I actually had just thought, oh, maybe I'm perimenopausal and my sex drive isn't as high, or maybe it's just because I'm older, maybe it's just because we've been together for ages. So it's really reassuring to hear, no, it's just the changes that come with getting sober as well. I don't feel quite so redundant now.
See, I was married when I first stopped drinking, and now I'm not.
You was what, sorry?
That I was married when I first stopped drinking, and now I'm not. But I think a big part of that is, like what you said, Emily, about respecting yourself and boundaries and all things like that, because I don't think I'd ever, from being a teenager, had a relationship or sex where I actually respected myself. And it has been like, I'm over 2.5 years sober now, and exactly what you said, I do respect myself more. I wouldn't just
you just jump in now, is there?
Absolutely not a chance. There's no way I would just have sex for just having sex's sake.
But it's true. I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to get at. I mean, now it's taken me probably almost 2 years to realize that actually it is real. Not that it wasn't real, it was always real, it was always intimate, it was always lovely, but now it's so intimate, it's raw, it's intimate, you feel everything.
It's making me awkward, this conversation. I'm like fidgeting under the table.
I can see it.
I don't mean like that. I did not mean like that. I just meant
you carry on fidgeting under the table and we'll talk about this.
We'll continue the awkward conversation. The only other, or not the only other, but a reassuring thing that I would say about sober sex is that sexually, as human beings, really, that is what we are put on planet to do, is to reproduce. So actually, it is inside of us for this to feel quite natural, actually, because that's what we are here to do. So we know how to have sex because it's actually in our DNA. So I always try to remind myself of this when I'm entering a sexy situation. You were born to do this.
That.
You know, you were born to have fantastic sex and at one point reproduce on this planet, sober or off your face. You can do it either way. And I sometimes play into my drunk sex siren, you know? What would you do if you were drunk? You actually, you wouldn't be worrying about your body, or you wouldn't be feeling nervous about having sex with this person. You would be feeling excited and liberated. So I try and like play into that as well in a way, and just remember, okay, what made me confident about having sex when I was drinking, and how can I kind of bring that into my sobriety to make myself feel sexy again, I suppose.
And to add to that, it is certainly for me, the initiation of it that is the difficult bit. Once you're there and once you're in the moment, it's miles better than when you're doing it drunk. Miles better. Like, it doesn't even compare. It's just the awkwardness of getting to that point that's quite difficult. And if you ever say to me, Lisa, that you were born to do this in a conversation, I am actually going to scream.
I am going to. That's what I'm going to say. I'm literally taking on all of Emily's advice today. I'm going bed earlier, getting up earlier,
and having sex.
I'll be like, I was born to do this, baby. Let's do it.
I think please give this a go and report back to us.
I will do.
Yeah, oh, that'd be so
in a few months' time.
Oh dear, yeah. No, I think it's a really useful conversation to have, and yeah, we're over it now, aren't we? That was good, Lisa. You did well there.
Thank you.
That's me being patronising, really, by the way. No, but I think
find conversations like that so awkward. I think I'm a secret. Alex says I'm prude, and I must be. There must be a little bit of like I do find things like this awkward. But when I was a drinker, never did I find it awkward. Ever.
It's just
but
being
do you think
present.
That's just because like you just trained your brain though for it to think right, alcohol, sex, confidence. So it's just going back to our coaching piece and like retraining that, isn't it? It's just rewiring, just like how we had to. I think it's no different from when we were going out in social situations, really, when we were used to having a glass of wine and it felt a bit awkward and a bit uncomfortable to begin with. But now we've like rewired that. We're like, okay, great, let's host sober events for people. And not that you're going to start hosting sex events for people. Although I do think there's quite a good market there. If anyone
there is
like
definitely a good market there.
But
I think it's again
in a way
with not aligning with your core values. Like when you're drunk, you perhaps do things that you perhaps necessarily aren't as comfortable with as when you're sober. It's like disrespecting yourself, maybe. So it's just learning about yourself again, isn't it?
It is as basic as that, though. You know, even sober dancing, when you first, and we were talking about this on a live last night, when you sober dance, you're just like a robot. Well, I was, because I can't dance anyway, but I thought I could. And I think that's part of it. So, you know, getting drunk and loosening up and thinking you're sexy and thinking you're amazing, you're probably not or any more, or in fact you're probably less sexy drunk than. It's just having the confidence to kind of act it out, I suppose. You know, like I don't think I could get into that kind of zone of getting in my underwear even now.
I'm going to practice. While you were saying that, I was thinking I'm going to practice right in my bedroom in my underwear doing some moves. I was born for this. I'm going to be doing some practicing.
You know, Lisa's imagination, the main reason isn't about being a prude, by the way. The main reason that Lisa struggles with this conversation, right, is, and I know it is, it's because she's got such a vivid imagination, right, and she knows my husband. So this is nothing to do with not being able to talk about you. It's me talking about foreplay, and she can actually see. Look, I knew it was that. I knew it was that.
Disgusting.
It is because you know my husband, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. I knew it was.
I feel like I've sinned more than I should, and it's dead awkward then when I go round and we've had these conversations and I go, "Hi, Sam. I saw you last night."
More than your wife did. Oh God, I don't know whether on that note we should kind of come to a close. But before we do, I mean, obviously we'd like you to send us all your links and how people can get hold of you so that we can stick it all in your bio and in the description. But where's the best place for people to contact you, Emily? Because I do think they'll want to. I think this has been incredible, actually.
Well, I hope so. Yes, if they'd like to come to our page, I very much enjoy having you at our page. It's at soberandsocial_ or soberandsocial.com. Or you can follow me at I am Emily Syphas on Instagram. That would be fabulous. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm going to get you a t-shirt that says "Born to Do It," so you can wear it before you go and enter your sexual encounter.
Can Can I just say on your closing note, I am so glad I didn't say your surname in the introduction, because I definitely wouldn't have pronounced it as Syphas. So I'm so glad that I didn't. But yeah, Emily Syphas, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. See you again.